are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I accidentally hit the "we're back" instead of the unmute button, but nevertheless, we are live. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. It always feels weird when we do a show on a Thursday. I always feel like there's just a different good energy that we bring to the table. I would not be shocked, though, if we're not awfully negative about the team that we are previewing later today.
I think that I think there's two folds to Ole Miss that I'm going to bring into this. I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to say a Lane Kiffin offense is going to stink.
That's fair.
Those words will never come out of my mouth. But there is an area for Ole Miss when you look into it very deeply, which we will do today. Joe, they might get patty smacked. And all right. I mean, Austin Simmons, we don't even know what's going on with Austin Simmons, the quarterback. How great or good can he be? Dude, the kid graduated at 19 years old.
Which is nuts. And I think he's a great player. My only thing outside of him, I just feel like this roster is incredibly depleted. I think that this roster has only maybe a handful of guys that we can talk about as premier players at their positions in the SEC and in the country. I think it is going to be a weird reset year for Ole Miss, because what made Ole Miss so good last year is that they dominated the transfer portal and they brought in a lot of the big name guys and they had a lot of big name players returning. The inexperience on this team might lead to a little bit of a reset that I hope Ole Miss fans are prepared for. I don't know if they have the patience.
Watch them make the playoffs this year.
No. I'm going to be frank. No, I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this year. So many better teams.
You know, Lane has never had a year in a regular season where he hasn't turned around and had 10 regular season wins or 10 wins in general. It does not exist.
I don't doubt
in the SEC.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that Lane can't find a way to win 9-10 games, 10 games including the bowl game. I don't think that it is realistic that they make the playoff this year. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself on my prediction, but I feel really weird about this roster. I'm going to list off all the guys that they lost, and there's a lot of talent, a lot of five-star talent that's gone that hasn't exactly been replaced with other five-star talent.
Can Deshaun Womack at edge be that guy that they're missing who came over from LSU? We'll talk about that. Committed on AYS, by the way, if anyone was wondering where he decided to make his commitment known live. Anyway, Joe, we'll talk about week 1 games. Notre Dame, Miami, LSU, Clemson, Bama, and Florida State. We'll break all those down, kind of talk about those and preview now that the times are out here. But before we do get started, we got to talk about this because Nick Saban was on with Paul Feinbaum yesterday and was talking about, since Paul asked him, a reference to the presidential committee when it comes to college football. And, Joe, I got to be honest, I'm about to be more negative on Nick Saban than I've ever been. I texted you today and said I think you could be a little bit right here in reference to how worried you were about him and this situation. Joe, I am sick and tired of people – even now Saban with authority, because Joe, he has authority now. He's leading the presidential committee for college football, for not just college football, for college athletics. My issue is when he was asked by Feinbaum, what is the first thing you're going to do? And every time we get a college sports leader, what is the thing that you want to do? No one wants to answer the question. And Saban went on with Feinbaum yesterday and did the same exact thing.
One of the things that I brought up to you when we first talked about this is I called into question, what were Nick Saban's motivations? Can we trust that Nick Saban is doing this unselfishly? We don't know what the underlying motives are for Nick Saban and why he wants to have a hand in the future of college athletics. And the full quote, he talked for a long time. It was like a 4-minute long quote. The one that's like the premier beginning of it that's quoted in a lot of articles First of all, I don't know a lot about the commission. Secondly, I'm not sure we really need a commission.
I kept saying committee. Sorry.
It's the same difference. It's a group of people that are coming together to make decisions. I think that a lot of people know exactly what the issues are in college football and exactly what we need to do to fix them. The key to the drill is getting people together so we can move it forward. My first thought was, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? You spend all this time talking about on game day all the problems, and everybody spends all this time, these leaders talking about all the problems. Why are you suddenly downplaying it now that there's federal involvement? And then he kind of went on to talk about how, like, I think we need involvement at the federal level and all these things. What do
you are that to me? You are that.
I was just, unless I misunderstood his entire quote, but I was sitting there listening to it yesterday. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, you didn't mishear it, because I heard the same thing. And here's the thing. I told you this from the beginning. I'm going to tell you this again. There is one truth to this. Kirby Smart came out today on Feinbaum and said that he doesn't want freshmen making more than his seniors. I tagged you in this, and some Georgia fans who have no idea what they're talking about tried to punch back, and then when I was like, you do realize that's not true, they stopped. He comes out and says, I want my seniors making more money than my freshmen. On3 reported last week that you're planning to give Jared Curtis $1 million.
Well, maybe that means the quarterbacks are making more than $1 million.
Well, that's fine, but don't tell me that then. Then Gunnar Stockton needs to make more money than Jared Curtis.
I think that's what he's kind of implying.
But he'll never do that. They're not going to give Gunnar Stockton. They're not going to give Ryan Puglisi. They're not going to give him that same level of money that they're giving Jared Curtis. It does not exist. And I told you this from the beginning. I will tell you this again, and not meaning like you disagree with me, but I've said this from the beginning, and I'll say it again. Mm-hmm. These coaches say they want change. They lie their asses off. They're lying their asses off. What do you mean they want things to change? No, they don't. Do you think that Nick Saban, who went up to an NFL draft and said that he tried to get a kid from Toledo, he tried to get this kid to go in the portal, hated that? You're outside your box. I will give him this. There is one thing that I think he could be doing that we need to take into account. There are guys like Cory Booker that is on this commission. And I do think it can be smart, if this is what he was doing, to not give anything that he'll go in there with so that they can counteract it. I do think that Nick played a little bit of politics. You never see a politician go out there and say, hey, here's my plan, so that they can shoot it down. I do think, candidly, he wants to come in there guns blazing so that they don't have any ammo to go after him.
Well, I would kind of argue the opposite. I think that if he was truly politicking, he would be using any microphone in front of him as an opportunity to push what he's trying to change. I think he seems directionless.
But here's the problem with that, though. And I thought about that, too. It's a great point, because I was stuck on that, too. Politicians say things before they get elected, and then they don't say it after they do. Saban's already elected to this commission, and he said, I really don't want to do it. That's a lie. That's a lie. He wouldn't have accepted it if he didn't want to do it. You know that, and I know that. But I'm kind of with you there. But listen, here's the bottom line truth. I am personally sick and tired of hearing people go out here and say, we need this done, we need that done, and then when you have the power to do it, you won't say what you want to do. Joe, he was asked by Feinbaum, what's the first thing that you would do? Like, what? Joe, what? Like, he didn't
really provide an answer.
No, he said, I don't want to. His exact quote to Feinbaum, I don't really want to get into that right now. I don't even think we need a commission. I think we could just sign it and everything be done. No, Nick. That's where. So when Nick said we can sign it and then be done with, I think that they're bitching, but they don't understand the legal ramifications of what is going on. I'm not saying that Nick Saban doesn't understand it, but you can't just go out there and say, hey, just sign this and it's all over with. And by the way, I talked to a coach that's not in football today for an hour, and she told me this. he's going to do everything for football, which my sport is not the same as football. So he better be careful on what he's going to sign or we're going to countersue. So you have coaches that are out there, track and field, women's basketball, whatever it may be, that they will be affected based off of this commission.
Well, he went on to elaborate when he was talking about it, how he was saying that the profitable sports should still be prioritized. Like he went on to talk about how like that is meaningful to him and that should be meaningful for the discussion. I just feel generally my biggest issue with his comments on it is how coy he was being. I feel like if you're supposed to be in this position and there has been a lot of driving forces that have this has been picking up steam over the last 2 weeks since we started talking about it. And now all of a sudden you don't think that we need it. You don't want to talk about it. You don't like it. It's very, and it should be for college football fans. I know this sounds extreme, but it's disturbing to me. It is legitimately disturbing that he holds the opportunity, if he has control of this commission, as it was reported on, that he does not want to be public about it, that he does not want to be forward about it, that he does not want to present solutions to the public. And I understand what you're saying with like the politicking aspect of it and that politicians operate and move in certain ways, the way that they comment on it, but he's not a politician. He is a former head coach, legendary, greatest head coach of all time. He needs to be forward facing. That was why he was placed in this. He is a broadcaster now. He is on TV constantly. He's on Feinbaum. He needs to use those opportunities to be candid, open, frank with the public, frank with coaches that are across multiple sports. I don't need to hear, I'm not sure we really need a commission. The hell we don't. No, we don't need a commission. We do. We need solutions. And now all of a sudden you get I'm so blown away by the whole quote that he gave, and it really bothers me. I sure hope to hell that President Trump actually even considers putting somebody else in charge of this. I'm that bothered by it.
Well, here's the problem. If it was easily fixable, somebody would have done something about it already.
Right.
Like that is the truth. Either they don't want to or Joe, they don't know how to tackle it. I here's what I think they're trying. Last thing before we move on. I think that they're trying to find a way to tackle this without making student athletes employees. And that's what I ultimately think.
Which continues to be one of the stupidest hurdles that is created that does not need to be there. Like it
I mean, Joe, you're paying. Joe, think about this. Hold on. In the SEC and Big Ten, they're by the house case. This is Dellinger's tweet. Go find it if you want to. But let's just do simple math very quickly. They have to give football $20 million TV revenue. Big Ten and SEC. That divided by 85 scholarship players, which I'm just going to leave it whole. Joe, a true freshman, if you're just averaging it out, is going to make $280,000 a year. And you don't want to make him an employee. You know why? Can I tell you why? Because if the guy's there more than 2 years, you got to start doing insurance. You got to start doing 401ks. You got to have pension plans. You got to have all of that. Oh, wait, that's right. That's why the CBA and the NFL and all these major league sports came up, because of those current situations. They don't want to have to deal with that. And that ultimately is going to bury them.
He makes sense.
Do I think that he's the right guy? I will say this. I don't know if he's not the right guy, but it didn't start off on the right foot. Let's see what he does, and let's see what those actions, hopefully he proves us wrong. All right.
Yep.
Joe, we'll come back. We'll get to these week one games and the time slots that they'll be in. We did talk about Ohio State and Texas, which, by the way, did you see, before we get to the break, there is a state representative in the great state of Ohio that is trying to ban noon games in the state of Ohio unless the game is against Michigan.
Yeah, shout out to Alex, by the way, who threw this, brought this up in the chat. Yeah, I saw it. I don't know the name of the representative. I forget his name. This is the same guy who wanted to make the flag planting thing illegal. look, I get that it's a problem that they keep getting the noon games and it's annoying, but can we stop being soft? Like, can we stop? Like, it's really not that extreme. I get it. It's annoying. It is an inconvenience. You want to be able to have some night games, but you are the premier brand in the conference that is getting the premier time slot. We talked about this yesterday. Fox wants to own the noon time slot, which means Ohio State owns the noon time slot because they are going to be the first team to play in most of those instances, as we broke down yesterday. I don't know why you'd be complaining about that. I don't know why you'd be upset about being the team that everybody associates, teenagers, kids growing up, associate with the noon time slot. Oh, it's noon. Oh, who's Ohio State playing today? Look, why is it such an issue? I don't know. I think it's just such stupid complaining.
I went and looked this up. Outside of the big games, what games have the biggest eyeballs regardless of teams?
Who?
Primetime 6:30. I challenge me on it. I guarantee you I am right.
Well, my only pushback on that is I think that often, generally, most big games between top-ranked opponents on other networks get moved.
Yeah,
they get moved to the later time slot.
I mean, college football flexes more than the NFL at any given moment, right? I mean, let's just be real. They don't give a shit about the fans, and that's why they put TBA on all these. They put TBA. They will never do that in the NFL. They put TBA in all of them, right? I mean, it is what it is. Alex does send a
thank you, Alex.
$5 super chat. Says, Joe, it is a problem. How we gonna get kids to our good games at noon from the West Coast? Red eyes. It hurts recruiting. We can't use our light show.
Okay, here's my only.
I do understand the recruiting thing. The recruiting thing's a big deal.
I understand that, like, at face value, it hurts recruiting. Do we need to go and pull up how Ohio State has done in the last 5 years under Ryan Day in recruit? Like, they've finished top 5 every single year. They've had one of the top quarterbacks. They've had usually multiple 5-star receivers, multiple top offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Like, it's not like we're talking about they're falling off and that they're having some massive dip. I understand what you're saying, Alex. Like, I understand that those just are general clear problems that we can talk about, but like, come on, there has not been a correlative negative impact.
I agree. I do think it's a little egregious what they're doing. I mean, but here's what I saw somebody who was defending Fox say today. We're giving you $1 billion for a conference. You can shut the fuck up.
That's a good point.
I mean, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, that there was.
I think it's fair to complain for them being in every single noon slot, but I think
correct.
You're right. Like, if you're getting asked to do it, it's just like you're getting all this.
Well, they did flex one for Ohio State in a prime time. It just wasn't at home. It was against Oregon.
Right, and that was on CBS.
Right. It was on. No one.
That was on CBS.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure that was on CBS.
Maybe it was. Maybe you're right. All right. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, Joe and I break down 3 week 1 games that we know the times for. It's going to be an awesome times for week 1 games. And we just got done complaining about noon games, and those noon games happen for Ohio State all the time. But there have been some primetime games and time slots that are allotted. But we're going to kind of talk about the games briefly here. Joe, I want to start up here. Your team, Notre Dame versus Miami, Sunday night, primetime. Your thoughts going into that one?
I think that the big driving talking point is going to be the performance of Carson Beck. I think that Carson Beck is going to massively sway the outcome of this one. I'd be really curious to see what the setting is going to be like opening game of the season. There's a lot more of a rabid attraction to Miami than there's been in the past. If that's a packed stadium, the energy's there. I think that that's also going to be fueling Miami. But Carson Beck, if he can return seamlessly from his injury, he is going to be so integral for them starting off the season with a win against Notre Dame. I heavily lean in favor of Notre Dame, though, because Notre Dame returns a lot of key players in their secondary. They return Leonard Moore. They return Adon Schuler. They return Christian Gray. You have a feeling out period that needs to happen. You do not have an FCS opponent. You do not have a G5 opponent to figure out that feeling out period of a new quarterback who was mistake prone last year coming off of an elbow injury. Like, I think that is going to be the biggest factor in this game why Notre Dame can win it.
So I have three things here. Number one, I do think it's the battle of the quarterbacks in this instance. We have question marks on both, whether it's CJ Carr or whether it's going to be Carson Beck. Regardless of who wins that job for Notre Dame, just replace the name. We'll just say CJ Carr for argument's sake right now, right? Joe, what questions do we get answered? Here's the thing with Carson Beck that I think people overlook. We saw the videos of him throwing this week. Be honest with you, I understand the decision-making. That's a whole different conversation. The first thing that I'm worried about is how does that elbow look? Well, my man's rifling some passes, okay? Decision-making, I'm with you. We can stay there if we need to. The second thing, so we got that. So now it becomes decision-making versus first time on the road, hostile environment. And I say hostile a little loosely when I talk about Miami and you going there to play. I also look at this and say to myself, Joe, I'm with you on secondary run game, but Carson Beck's played in a lot of massive games. His experience, I think, can help him in that situation, even from a decision-making standpoint. If I'm Miami in that game, and we'll talk about this when we get to week one. If I'm Miami, Joe, I am loading the box down, and I am making the new quarterback beat me. You're going to have to find a way to throw the football. You can play 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You may score. It may be low scoring. I am going to make this young quarterback prove to me that he can beat me. And you know what? If he does, fine, great. Why wouldn't you try to do that? Now, the second thing that I would look here for this one too, can Miami stop explosive plays, though? Can you load the box? Joe, what was their Achilles heel a year ago? They couldn't stop an explosive plays with a tampon if they had a bloody nose. They could not do it. It was the reason why, number one, they didn't win the ACC. It was the number one reason why they didn't make the playoff. Joe, we got to get that question answered. You have 4 starters in your secondary that are brand new, all from the portal. Even if you do want to stack the boxes, in this instance, CJ Carr going there and sling that rock around. That will be the biggest question mark for me. Lastly, Joe, I think it's a really good and physical Miami run game versus a very physical run defense that you're going to see. I think whoever, regardless of what happens, whoever wins that matchup in Miami is going to win that football game.
I wouldn't be surprised if this game doesn't end up playing out a lot like the Notre Dame-Texas A&M game did last year at the beginning of the season, where it was relatively low scoring. A lot of the big plays came in the run game from both teams. And Notre Dame, just after grinding each other down for 3-4 quarters, Notre Dame eventually breaks free and they're able to win the football game. I think that there's a lot of quiet experience along Notre Dame's defensive line that comes back. Boubacar Traore is returning from an injury. Bryce Young is a player that we've talked a lot about. That linebacker room is super physical, and they're going to do whatever they can to slow down this rushing attack. I think that for any Miami fan that wants to say, we're going to come after whatever young quarterback, inexperienced quarterback starting, if it's Carr or Minchie, I feel a lot better about Notre Dame's run game in this matchup than I do about Miami's run game. I think that Miami's going to have a fantastic run game. I think that they're going to run the ball really well this upcoming year. But as you just talked about, there was a lot of inconsistencies with Miami's defense. This is the first game for Heatherman taking over this defense. Again, there's a lot of feeling out that you have to do in a very short period of time against the best, one of the best, before anybody gets pissed at me for implying that this unit is better than the Singleton, Katron Allen group. But Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are one of the best 1-2 punches in college football. If you give up one big run to Jeremiah Love, you are going to be already chasing it on your heels. So that, for me, is a lot of this. The uncertainty with Carson Beck, and I think that Notre Dame's run game is going to be an asset for them to turn to.
Another thing about that secondary, just before we move on here, that I want to point out. when I look at some of the receiving options that Notre Dame does have returning, I mean, look, and I'm going to throw Williams in there, okay? Because if you remember in the playoffs, he had at least 3 big catches that sparked them offensively. I do think that they'll utilize him or somebody in that area, but Faison down the stretch. So when we look at Faison down the stretch, Joe, do you remember some of the critical catches he had?
Well, him and Jaden Greathouse. Greathouse had some huge plays. His emergence is the big catches.
Thing. Well, Faison had half of his catches in the playoffs. He had 15.
Because he was hurt and he was dealing with an ankle injury. And him, I think that there's a chance that the Notre Dame receiving room looks completely different. And with all those new corners in there, this could be a coming out party for one of them.
Well, hold on. Last 2 years, I said that Notre Dame wasn't good enough there, and you yelled at me. And not trying to go there.
This is a different year, though. This is, I mean, like I know that like I was getting ahead of myself.
Bingo. Hey, now they got some explosiveness, and all I'm going to say is this: if Mike Denbrock gonna call something, he gonna run that inside slot fade route. You best believe it. Malik Neighbors got drafted over running one fucking route. I promise you. Ask him. I know what he'll tell you. You have 2 dudes that can set you up for that. I've been critical of that position before because I didn't know if they had enough explosiveness. Shit. All right. You go ahead and
now.
They got some explosiveness there. That's an area for Notre Dame when we look at, hell no, they ain't got nobody. All right, watch. And you know how critical I've been. But I
know. I'm shocked that you're giving them credit.
Faison and Greathouse showed the explosiveness down the stretch. Can they build off of that playoff run will be a massive question for me. Joe, let's run to the next one here. Bama, Florida State, 2:30 Saturday. I got to say it. I smell blowout.
Dude, they're going to wax Florida State. Look, we talked about this in the Alabama preview. There is going to be some questions that need to be answered. Like we gotta see what Austin Mack's going to be like. We got to see if the defense is going to be more hard-nosed and consistent. We got to see if there is going to be overall better decision-making, and I have faith in that. I feel like this could be one of those games. We already know Ryan Williams is good. Ryan Grubb is a great offensive coordinator. He's an awesome play involved. Well, not only how does Ryan Williams get involved, but I think this could be one of those games where, like, afterwards we're talking about, like, so-and-so is the next big emerging receiver in the SEC. I think that Ryan Grubb is so good at finding premier talent and maximizing it at receiver, just like he did at Washington. And with so many ugly roster holes at this Florida State team, I mean, like, this could be a game where they get completely worked because Grubb is just cooking. And we start to talk about how Ty Simpson is starting to look, like he's the next great thing in Alabama. It might shroud some of our questions on him, and it might take away from some of the inefficiencies that he has a player because he plays so well in this game.
I want to throw this out there. I'm not going to go there with Ty Simpson or anything Bama does if they blow them out. Joe, we're talking about a 2-win Florida State team from a year ago with massive overhauls everywhere. From a player aspect, from a coaching aspect, Joe, they're brand new outside basically of Mike Norvell. Legitimately. And you want, like, even, and this isn't a shot at Bama. I think that everybody, like, that will logically understand this will think and say to themselves, you know what, he's right. Like, you can't go into week 1 saying, brother, we're going to win the SEC. We just beat Florida State. The spear on the side of that helmet is not going to necessarily dictate how good of a team that they are. Now, here's the thing that I'm very interested in seeing. There is a lot of buzz around Castellanos. I thought Castellanos was not bad at all last year. I mean, look, he's at Boston College, brand new system, his damn self. Bill O'Brien was Bill O'Briening. Okay, if that's a way to, if we can say that. But Joe, you're going up against a team that had 2 wins last year. There's more snow in the state of Florida by inches than where Florida State wins a year ago. And I love that joke, but it is true, right? Like it is a true statement, which is nuts to say. But I need the real Bama to start stepping up. And let me tell you what I mean by that. You can go a year if you're Kalen DeBoer. You can go a year and say, look, man, this is post Nick Saban. We had 30-plus kids enter the portal. It's a whole new system, whole new situation. Joe, they got to show some impressive stuff here. It's got to be impressive when they do it. So even though I don't think you can make it the outlook for the season, I have no idea what to make of Florida State. Zero. Because, Joe, what do you want me to say? Like, when we talk about this game in week one or leading up into week one, I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to say about Florida State. None. Maybe this could be good, that could be good. We're making complete assumptions about nothing we know about based off of them having to replace literally everything. Excuse me.
Well, and I think that's a good reason. When you have a team that has this much turnover, you should automatically assume the negative. Like you always should, especially after we saw last year. We allowed ourselves to get overhyped on all the new faces that were coming in and then completely underwhelming. I think you made a really good point with this with Alabama, though. I think a lot of Alabama fans can agree that this is a put up or shut up year. Kalen DeBoer, the pressure should be on his head. It should. I'm not saying he's getting fired at the end of the season. That's not what I'm saying. When you're following Nick Saban, reaching the playoff is the general expectation. And I think it starts here against Florida State. You better kick their ass. Like, this is a team that is unsettled in figuring their direction out. Florida State might end up finishing better than expected, might end up finishing with a winning record, going to a bowl game, and righting the ship. But outside of that, that doesn't mean that Alabama shouldn't smell blood and go after it. Like, this is that chance for them to allow for their defense to kick ass, to allow for their playmakers to have a bunch of big plays. And what I was kind of talking about with Ty Simpson is Simpson hasn't played, and there's a chance that Simpson is a decent starter for this team, but you should come out of this game. He should play so well in this game specifically that there should be hyperbolic reactions to who he is as a player. Like Ryan Grubb comes in, he shouldn't come in and throw for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Like, I want to see the transformation. I want to see this team take the step with him in the mix, a guy who's supposed to be a brilliant mind and that was at Washington, take this team to the level that we were expecting to last year when they were super inconsistent on offense.
Mm-hmm. Hot take.
Okay.
I think Ty Simpson or whoever they run out at quarterback is going to be more efficient. I'm not saying better. Highly more efficient than what Jalen Milroe was a year ago.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I don't think Kalen DeBoer put Jalen Milroe in a lot of favorable situations. I don't.
I agree.
You beat
Georgia.
I
don't think he was meant for the offense. I think that we tried.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I mean, but you're beating Georgia. You're beating LSU. You're beating all these teams, South Carolina. Well, what did you do? So he ran the football with him. What games did you lose? Tennessee. You lost to Vandy. What did you try to do with him? You try to make the kid sit back in the pocket and do something that's not his strength.
Yeah.
So efficiency will be massively key here. One final thing on this one before we move to LSU and Clemson. I am interested to see this, though, from Florida State because we talked all about Bama there. Joe, is this a you talked about put up or shut up. We haven't talked
embarrassed.
Well,
they get embarrassed, man.
Okay, so let's go there. I mean, if you're coming off a 2-10 season and you get embarrassed by Bama, then what?
There's gonna be a lot of calls for firing.
Like, what then for Mike Norvell? Because then we got to have a serious conversation.
Well, nothing can change after week one. And it's kind of like what I said a second ago, where like there's an opportunity for redemption. There's an opportunity for the end of the year to just go a little bit more smoothly. And we'll do a Florida State preview at some point. There's a chance for them to go 8-4 and us to feel a little bit better about the direction of the team.
How about that? 8-4 at Florida State, and we feel you're going in the right direction.
Well, considering they went 2-10 last year, I mean,
guess
it's a lot. It's a lot better. But let me throw this your way. That like Clemson looked awful against Georgia at the beginning of the year, and they rebounded. And look how we're talking about them right now.
I get that, but that's different the way that the programs are structured. I mean, let's look at what Dabo's done. Joe, why have they built up so much? Joe, he went through a 3-year recruiting process and dominated through development. I mean, all of these guys, Klubnik, TJ, Peter Woods, what are we talking about? We're talking about, hey, oh shit. Dabo, oh shit. Dabo said, I ain't going to portal. I might dabble. But Joe, he's at year 3 with all these kids that he recruited, and he's still developing from within. I get what you're saying. By the way, a whole offensive line returning. Joe, they got 5 new offensive linemen at Florida State.
Right. I'm just trying to say that, like, if an ACC team gets their asses kicked by a team that's supposed to be one of the best in the SEC, I think that we will freak out, but
completely different situation, though.
Yeah.
Completely different situation.
We need to remember that context.
We did. Joe, lastly, before we move to our Ole Miss deep dive here, I've been talking about this one for 2 weeks. It feels like, as crazy as it sounds, because of the narrative about Clemson, the team we just talked about. But LSU, Clemson, Saturday night, Death Valley. Not the real Death Valley if you're an LSU fan, but nevertheless, Death Valley. I'm gonna kick it over to you, man. I've talked about it a lot. A lot of people know how I feel, but I'll let you start this one.
There are a lot of similarities with these two teams, and I'm like really excited for the fact that like this is an opening matchup. This is the opening primetime game that we were given. Two teams with such similar narratives. People calling into the question of the credibility of the head coaches. People calling into the expectations of what the quarterback can do of their team. Can they go on to become a top 5 pick? You're returning a lot of key important defensive players. You've got this chance to go on a national championship trajectory. I do not think the loser of this game automatically falls out of the national championship convo. I don't think it happens. I think either side could lose this game, and it could end up being a rallying point for them to push forward. But I think that what is very important here is the winner is going to have the ultimate momentum. They're going to have the momentum of listening to all the headlines that are already starting to build up at this current moment. I've seen more about LSU being a national championship sleeper and Clemson being a national championship sleeper over the past 2 weeks than I've ever seen. All of that buildup over the next 2 months is going to motivate these two teams that if they win, whoever wins will believe in themselves to win a national championship. I truly believe that the winner of this game will be in the national championship. I really think that whoever wins this game will go on to go that far.
Listen. All right. Calm down. This LSU team.
Oh, don't act like I didn't say anything that no one else has said. Come on.
But here's the problem. This is why I've had to talk about it the last 2 weeks. People better calm down on that LSU hype.
Okay.
There's a lot. Listen, there is nobody that we conversate with. I don't, maybe other than maybe a couple. There's not anybody from a financial standpoint that does a college national football show that wants LSU to succeed from a financial standpoint more than I do. And I am telling you, you better calm down. Don't do that because they got just as many question marks as Clemson does. Clemson has gotten a lot of benefit of the doubt. And you said one thing that is very key, the narrative. You're right. Both of them have a lot of the same narratives. A lot of them have a lot of the same questions. A lot of them. Joe, I think LSU's got to win this more than Clemson does. LSU's got to win this game because
naturally they have a harder schedule.
Joe, I'm going to say something, and I am heels to Jesus, ready to defend this point. I think they have the toughest schedule in the country. Does LSU? You want to talk about momentum? They got to go against 7 of the top 10 quarterbacks that me and you listed. 7. By the way, If you go to your draft show, because I remember I was in there and I was commenting about quarterbacks. Let me tell you the reason why. You do realize that 4 of those y'all thought potentially could be first-round quarterbacks. And if that's the freaking case, then one of them, if not 2 of them, let's just say half, can and will go off. Joe, listen, I think I will say this. Defensively at edge, I'm calling it. I'm shooting my shot. LSU might be borderline elite. They have not had the edge presence like this probably since 2019-ish, but they ain't had this level of production at edge probably since 2011 when that amazing LSU defense with Matthew and the boys were there. They ain't got it like that. They've moved Harold Perkins to star, okay, which they sent on blitzes 50% of the time. Joe, that star position and corner slot blitzes, 9 times out of 10, a tight end and a running back take that. You have Patrick Payton on the other side. If they hit, I do think defensively, and I mean this, Joe, they might be a top 30 unit. The biggest thing for LSU that got missed a season ago because they went 8-4 was their defense jumped from 107th in total defense to 53rd. So when I look at, they made people don't realize how massive of a leap they did. The problem was Garrett kept turning the ball over so much, which he has to fix for them to go on any form of run. That defense made 4 stops against Ole Miss to win it. There's a lot of questions for both and a lot of concerns for both. I can go into Clemson. I can go in for LSU. Joe, here's the God's honest truth. If Garrett does not turn the football over, then we got a heavyweight fight on our hands. That's how I feel about it. But there's so many questions for me in my mind that I cannot overlook for both teams.
Not to drag out this preview for too long, but like I think that you're right on that. I think that Garrett Nussmeier having a clean game, having one of his cleaner games is going to be needed for LSU to win this. I do agree with you that there is a lot of athleticism at edge this year. There is also a lot of question marks, though, because a lot of those guys have been relatively inconsistently proven. You know, Patrick Payton's getting called into question, his effort. And I have been a proponent for saying that I think he's going to figure it out at LSU, but there's still an opportunity for him to just be a little bit above average instead of playing to that first round hype. Harold Perkins consistently unavailable, health issues, and an inability to find a role for him. Hopefully this is the right role for him. At the end of the day, though, I lean Clemson in this. I think that this could still be a rallying point for LSU to come out of it, because sometimes you need to have a little bit of you need to get punched in the face to get up and swing back. It might end up helping them. And for Clemson's case, I posted some clips of Klubnik today. Dude, the more that I watch that kid, the more that I think he's special. I really think that kid's special, and I really think that there is a lot of doubt being placed on him. I think that Cade Klubnik can go on to win the Heisman this year. I think he could go on to win a national title, could go on to be the first round overall pick. His mistakes that he makes in his decision-making feel fixable to me, and some of his highlight plays are unbelievable, and his receivers down the stretch were making some unreal plays as well. There was one play, Antonio Williams, I didn't clip it yet, but I'm going to clip it and post it at some point, makes one of the most unreal catches. I don't even know if it was called complete or not, but it looked like he got his foot in. He completely, ball is placed right where it needs to be, but he completely readjusts, gets his foot in just barely, and comes out with the football. Like, the ability for that receiver room in Klubnik to take one more step forward, I think, is going to separate them. And in a game like this, it's just going to come down to a final drive. And if whoever is the ball last.
Very well may. Very, very well may. All right. Let's get to Ole Miss. So, Joe, we continue on our journey of doing deep dives for teams in college football. Tonight, we go to Oxford, Mississippi. Joe, in what may for some be coming out of last season for Ole Miss, what they would probably expect a down year considering how good their defense played and the money they spend in the portal. They come into this season yet again, destroying the portal and going after having a top 3 class in the transfer portal. When you go and you look at Ole Miss going into the 2025 season, your thoughts?
I Actually, I'm not going to go that far. I almost said something that would have pissed everybody off. I feel a little uneasy about this Ole Miss team. I think that Lane Kiffin is good enough of a coach to still produce a 9-win football team with this team. Last year was an underperformance, and I think that he's going to get the most out of this group. But I need to read a couple of things that catch my attention.
All right, do it.
These are the guys that they lost to the NFL draft.
Here
Walter Nolan, former 5-star, Princey Umamielen, premier sack getter, Jackson Dart, who was one of the most productive quarterbacks in college football last year, Trey Amos, one of the best corners in college football, Trey Harris, inconsistently healthy, but one of the most productive receivers in college football, Jared Ivey, one of your best defensive linemen on the team, Chris Paul, one of your best linebacker, actually the best linebacker on your team, J.J. Pegues,
might be the best linebacker in the SEC last year.
Yes, Juice Wells, good receiver, Henry Parrish Jr., good running back for your team. But that's not all. 31, I counted 31, unless I missed somebody, 31 new portal players coming to this team. You pull up, I love the Our-Lads depth charts, and I know that there is still room for things to change because we have fall camp coming up. But I love Our-Lads because it highlights who's new. When they highlight who's new, it's orange. The whole damn team is orange, Blake. I didn't realize that there has been this much turnover. I throw back to you on this because something smells off. Something smells off to me.
Well, remember last year when I told you when you go for broke and you don't develop like you do when it comes to high school recruiting and you don't develop from within, it can be a recipe for disaster. You know why it smells fishy to you? Florida State.
That was what I was going to say at the beginning. I didn't want to open the conversation with that. This feels like...
I know that's what you were going to say, but
Florida State.
Here's the problem with what you just said, though.
Okay.
There is a guy who's done this every single year to some degree. Maybe not to the level of players being like the quality of player being brought in. They haven't done that like they did last year. Joe, Lane always has hit the portal like that, brother. Always. Go look at every year. They've just some years it's been more egregious than others. Yeah. They've hit it like that. And he's had success. I would just caution you on this. I know it's a lot, but he's been the one that's had the success. They got to start recruiting via high school. They have to sustain, and they don't have to do what they're doing like that. They got to. I don't know if they will or if they won't, but they're going to have to at some point. Problem is that they can't compete with the Bamas, Georgias, LSU's, A&M's, Texas's, Oklahoma's from a financial standpoint. And Joe, like the number one player in Mississippi right now is already committed. The 5-star, the number one receiver in the country is already committed to LSU, right? Like they can't get their top talent because of what those other programs can do in recruiting. I'm going to just pump the brakes on you on one thing. He's done it every year. Like, what are we talking about? I know it's a down year based off of what they did in the portal a year ago. Joe, 9-3 at Ole Miss is the standard. Until they can get to the playoff and make a national title run, 9-3, 10-2 is their standard under Lane. I will say this, though. Offensively, they have a lot coming back. And they did something this year that they refused to do a season ago. Joe, they went on the offensive line and got 4 guys. They didn't do that a year ago. I do think that they have evaluated from the portal better than anybody on these lower tier guys. But you look at 4 new offensive linemen, you look at receiver, you look at you having to replace a first-round quarterback in Jackson Dart. What is your running game offensively? I'm just never going to question Lane offensively. Now, do I think that they're going to be a top premier team? I don't really want to I don't know there. I don't know if they're a top premier offense. So he's one of the best dudes that does it. And he's doing it in one of the toughest conferences. And every year they're having success. They had some issues last year at receiver when Trey Harris went down. They did not hit on Juice Wells, and it backfired on them. Then they couldn't run the ball, and Jackson Dart had to be Superman, and he couldn't be Superman without another weapon. That is a fact. Joe, the problem with me is what is Pete Golding going to be able to do? Defensively, I would worry about them. The secondary, they better be on watch out, especially at safety. Joe, Sage Ryan comes in. If he starts, no way. Mm-hmm. They're going to get obliterated. Jalen Braxton comes in. Joe, he played in 2 games last year. You have no idea what you're getting in that kid. None. So, look, man, I look at Ole Miss and say outside of Austin Simmons, that might not be your biggest question mark, because I don't think Lane's going to miss with Austin Simmons, and I don't think that he's ever going to miss at quarterback. It'll be a cold day in hell when he starts missing there. But, brother, I could see him going to the playoff because it's Lane pulling one out of the hat. I could see them going 7-5. I do think that there's just so many different angles I can take with this. They get Logan Diggs back. They didn't have a running game last year. This offensive line can be better than what it was a year ago. And by the way, if Austin Simmons is the kid that I saw on that first drive versus Georgia, that kid could be special.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that, to kind of clarify what I'm saying here, I wasn't trying to jump in. And that was why I didn't want to say it gives me Florida State vibes to open the conversation. I brought it up into the discussion after you brought it up because naturally that is the red flag that we associate with teams that bring in this many transfers. They have not been a good high school recruiting team, just like Florida State. I do agree with you that I have faith that they're going to be just enough better than all the mid-level SEC teams for them to go 9-3 again. I do not think that this is a playoff team. I think that if you had last year the crew of guys that you had and you couldn't get there, you had to whine about it, missing the playoffs, and you couldn't get there, you could only win 9 games, you couldn't beat Kentucky, something is going to get in the way. And losing to Kentucky, we talked about this, was just an awful play calling show by Lane Kiffin because he threw the ball too damn much. He gave up on running the ball way too early. I think Logan Diggs...
He did the same thing in every single game that they lost, if you want to go back and look at it.
I think that Logan Diggs is going to be impactful for them. I really do think that Austin Simmons is going to be a special player. I think that the receiver additions that they have coming in with Stribling and Harrison Wallace, Caleb Odom, they're going to get production out of all these guys. I also have faith in Pete Golding that he's going to get something out of Deshaun Womack and Prince Will, Umami and Suntarine Perkins.
Not Princely. Prince Will.
Sorry, Prince Will.
Yeah.
And Suntarine Perkins is still going to be a good player for them this year. But I say all this to say we have previewed enough SEC teams, Blake, that I see and know what the playoff makeup is. I feel like I am looking at a roster that is decent, that has some volatility to it, that Lane can reel it in, but is not going to be able to get them over the top because there's just not a lot of special players on this team.
The last time that I said that, they went 10-2 in the regular season.
What year was that?
2 years ago.
I'm trying to remember.
And then because Jackson Dart's coming in, you're post the Matt Carroll era. We have no idea what Jackson Dart is. We have no idea with all the offensive linemen that they brought in. We have absolutely zero idea what Pete Golding is and what their defense can do. And they go 10-2 and they beat Penn State in the Sugar Bowl? Or no, maybe the Fiesta, Orange Bowl.
I forget what bowl.
Whatever bowl it was, they wound up beating Penn State.
Well,
Joe,
that's right. I mean, Quinshon Judkins had his
emergence.
That was his second. That was his second year. So we already kind of knew about Quinshon Judkins. I think we kind of knew about some of the big
who's going to be the next guy. It's right. Exactly what happened 2 years ago. Dude, all I would say here would be this. If they hit on this Austin Simmons kid, I don't want to say this because I want to say that there are just some things that he does from a passing standpoint that when you just look at him normally, that he might have a higher ceiling than Jackson Dart.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jackson Dart's physically limited, so like I'm not.
But I do think that Dart is a better athlete than him. I do.
The ceiling, the ceiling is definitely higher with Austin Simmons, and I think that for me, the real year for this team, the challenge, if they can use this as a momentum builder, a foundation builder, 2026, Austin Simmons, second year as a starter, redshirt senior. That is the year. That's the year to go all in. Like that's the timeline. That is typically when we see teams like this hit. When you've got a guy who's played a lot of football games, takes over a quarterback, or he's been a multi-year starter, that is the time when you start to reach your potential. I don't think that it's going to be 2025, to be really frank.
Hold on. I'm looking something up.
I'm worried about what you're pulling up here. Very worried about what you're pulling up here.
I'm pulling up the 2022 portal class.
I'm trying to remember.
I mean, Jackson Dart's the big one there. You know, like, look, Perkins returns. He had high production. I do think defensively that they have some intriguing pieces. I mean, Deshaun Womack was a 5-star coming out of Maryland. He didn't have the success at LSU, maybe that he wanted. Does he hit that ultimate stride? I don't know. They got some talent now. I will tell you this: if there's one area that they might get torched in, it's at DB. They might get.
Yeah, I don't know what to feel about their.
No, their safeties are going to get obliterated. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. Yeah. They're going to get it. All right.
I feel uncertain about their secondary too.
I watched every single play of Sage Ryan at LSU. Every one of them. These eyeballs that bad.
You're calling him out that bad. You think there's no world that he can succeed?
If he does, it's because that Pete Golding is a wizard.
Well, we've seen him get the most out of guys unexpectedly. It's possible.
Give the man the Broyles Award if it happens. I mean, I'm just dead serious. Give the man a Broyles Award.
Could you imagine? We should pull if he goes on to win the Broyles Award. Could you imagine? Well, we got to remember to pull.
Oh, we do have to remember to pull us.
Yeah.
Look, I do think there's a ceiling for them, right? I just look to go 9-3. They have to pull something off, and we'll just have to wait and see if they do.
Yeah, gonna need to sneak a win against LSU or against South Carolina, one of their tougher opponents.
Yeah, they will. All right, Joe, it's been a good one. Oh, we forgot to get to their schedule. Did we need to do that?
Well, no, but I mean, we already. Don't you have to go to your next show?
No, I don't have a show.
Oh.
Baseball game's coming on at 6:30, so we do post game.
I think we buttoned it up nicely. I don't think we need to get to the schedule.
Sounds good. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a good night. Peace.